never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football, I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson, and we're previewing all of the Week 8 action here in the NFL. So let's get into it right after you tell us about the new props here on the desk.
Yeah, look, here's our custom baseball bat sent to us by the very good people at Stinger.
Thank you, Stinger.
Our guy, Derek Fye, sent us this stuff or hooked us up with this stuff. So, you know, we had the metal bat that they send us to actually, you know, do the swinging and do the hitting with. But this is a kind of custom display model that's got, let me, where are we? We've got a camera here. It's got the PFF logo here, and then the Best Friends Animal Society logo here, the PFF charity drive stuff here, and then look, Stinger. There we go. So this is going to sit up here and live with us for a little bit on the desk, and then we'll maybe think of something to do with it cool after we've actually done all this stuff.
One thing I know you shouldn't do with it is swing it and try to hit me.
Well, certainly not in here.
Well, definitely.
There's a lot of things we could smash in the studio. Like, you can't see it from the shot, but there's like lights hanging everywhere. There's
to be clear, when we play, when you hit against me, it will be with a metal bat.
Yes,
not the wood bat that could break.
And then we got batting gloves as well. Now look, there's some American flag going on here, like a motif.
Festive.
I'm not 100% on board with that, but I'm assuming there's a
Irish and American.
Well, that's the thing. I'm assuming there's a very limited supply of Irish flagged baseball get-up you can
probably
find.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we're gearing up. We're getting close. And again, if you've got a field, or if you're at the University of Cincinnati right down the street, and you're going to let us, go there.
I was talking to Rick upstairs, and he was like, "Steve's going to let you swing with a metal bat?" I was like, "Yeah, look, I don't think his fear of what will happen if I connect with any of these things is tremendously high, so I don't think he's too worried about it."
No, I mean, what are you going to do? Anyway, that's all going to be fun. Don't forget promo code NFLPod. You get 25% off any PFF subscription. It's just for you, just for our listeners here at the NFL Podcast, PFF NFL Podcast. So NFL Pod, 25% off over at PFF.com. We're live on YouTube. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's get into all the action. By the way, yesterday we did preview the Thursday night football game, Packers-Cardinals. Packers out their defensive coordinator now since we recorded.
And the Cardinals out J.J. Watt.
And J.J. Watt is out for the season since we recorded.
Dude, that poor... Stop injuring him. Just stop. Look, football gods, you've had enough. You've had your pound of flesh out of J.J. Watt. Now stop. Leave him alone.
Yeah.
You've already taken away what could have been the greatest NFL defensive career of all time. That's gone now. Now he's just a really good player. Leave him be. Stop injuring the man.
Yeah, sad. He played through the shoulder injury last week, and now he's out for the season.
So Watt is out. Am I the only one that wonders if he could play through a game with it? Like, can he keep playing with it?
Well, yeah. Like, how bad was it?
I mean, this is like Baker Mayfield, right? He needs surgery to fix his shoulder. He's going to keep going. Like, if you can play a whole game...
You're saying Baker's tougher than J.J. Watt?
I would never say that. I'm simply wondering if a man can injure it during a game, play... It was like the whole second half he played, right?
Yeah.
Play through it for the second half. Why can we not keep playing through it?
Well, we'll get JJ on the show and ask him why can't you suck it up, JJ?
I mean, you can ask him. You're taller than he is.
True, I am.
I'll stand behind you and find out.
Close in weight too, to JJ. We have similar frame. No, remember my frame comp is Carlos Dunlap. Anyway, let's get into all the action week 8. So we previewed the Packers-Cardinals yesterday on our Wednesday show. So go listen to that if you want that game preview. But now we'll go through this weekend, the Sunday's action. It was tough to find a game of the week or games of the week. We usually try to highlight 3.
It's a weird week.
Yeah, there's some decent ones, but we'll go through all of them anyway. Let's start with Tampa Bay at New Orleans. The Bucs are favored by 5.5 in the Dome. An NFC South battle. I don't think many people expected the Saints maybe to be challenging the Bucs for the NFC South crown this year, right? I mean, wasn't.
Are we sure they are?
I mean, they're a game behind.
I know.
I mean, a game and a half, however you want to look. The Saints have had a bye. The Bucs haven't. But if the Saints win, they're technically not in first, but they're like a win behind.
But look at the wins. Like you got.
Oh, I understand.
So you got Week 1 against Green Bay, and honestly, we just have to throw that out as madness at this point for both teams. Then you've got a win at New England, where New England don't seem to be able to win. A win at Washington and a win at Seattle with Geno Smith as the quarterback.
Right. No, I get it.
Then we have losses to the Giants and the Panthers, who aren't neither of whom were good.
Yeah.
What do we do with that?
This is the Saints' test.
This
is their test.
Okay.
Against the Bucs. Now they're at home. They beat the Bucs in both games last year, for whatever that's worth, both at home, and then they crushed them in Tampa Bay during the regular season. They lost in the playoff game, in the divisional round. But the Saints matched up extremely well with the Bucs last year. They were the one defense that, they consistently gave the Bucs some problems. Both, again, in that Sunday night beatdown, but even in the divisional round, that was the worst game for the Bucs offense. They ended up scoring 31. A lot of that was driven by Drew Brees not being able to throw passes very far.
Yes.
And throwing interceptions and flipping the field and the whole thing. So it's going to be, and for the Bucs, it's a big challenge offensively. By the way, Antonio Brown shows up at practice with crutches yesterday. Supposedly both ankles hurt. And Bruce Arians says he's either might come back after the bye, which is next week, or he might be out for a long time. So that could be bad for the Bucs and their offense. They do have a lot of depth, but it's a factor.
This was an injury that the team knew about, right? He didn't just roll up with crutches and was like, surprise!
No, he missed last week because of it.
Yeah.
But but the crutches thing, I think, might be new. Something's happening with those ankles.
But just the way you were selling that, it's like, we're expecting Antonio back this week.
I think the crutches were new.
Yeah.
Not to the team, but to the
public.
To the public. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's potentially a big blow for the Bucs offense. Antonio Brown had been their deep threat, really. As good as Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are, and Gronk Gronk came back to practice, so he might be playing this week. AB has been their deep threat, replacing Scotty Miller with Scotty Miller's injury. So it could be a big blow for the Bucs if it's more than a couple weeks.
Yeah. The other interesting aspect here is that the New Orleans Saints receivers, wide receivers in particular, are completely non-productive so far this season.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay, their biggest problem on defense is all of their corners keep getting injured. Even the ones that they bring in for, reinforcements get injured. They've got nobody. But the Saints might have the only group of wide receivers in the NFL that those defensive backs can actually cover comfortably and not be exposed by. So it's going to be an interesting game because you got, slinging Jameis Winston back there, but who's he slinging it to? So in theory, you look at this and you're like, well, the Bucs defensive line hasn't gotten a ton of pressure this season. They're not as productive as they were last season up front. So Jameis Winston standing back there should be able to, deal a little bit. But who's he dealing to? And against those Tampa Bay corners, you'd be like, actually, this is like a Jameis Winston kind of matchup. But again, does he have anybody to take advantage of?
Well, the other part of it, right, is how about the way the Saints have played this year? They have tried to make this an Alvin Kamara-led offense.
And now they bring in Mark Ingram back.
Mark Ingram, he's back. The old Thunder and Lightning, right? Every two-back set is Thunder and Lightning, right? That's what they have to be.
It does. I don't quite understand why you need to go on trade for a Mark Ingram, but I think the idea of the Saints trying to protect the overall efficiency of Alvin Kamara by reducing his early down workload is probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, and the aspect I'm going to bring up here is they've been trying to run the ball a lot more this year. It's a different offense. It's not Drew Brees' offense, but we've seen teams completely shy away from that with the Bucs and their defensive front. So do the Saints, try to ram their head against that wall and try to get productive and average 4.5 yards per carry against a really good defensive front? Or is this a full Jameis game? Is this a game? You know, a lot of their best games, it's Jameis dropping back 25 times and not having to do nearly as much. Is this one of those games where, like other teams have done, they say, well, our best bet against the Bucs is to spread and throw on early downs and take advantage of their depleted secondary and all that fun stuff. Does Sean Payton have that in him? And look, I think Jameis has done a really nice job hitting Kamara out of the backfield. I mean, that was he had over 10 catches Monday night, all that stuff. That could be the play here too, is just, the short passing game. When
you look at their receiving numbers this year, it's kind of wild. Alvin Kamara leads the team in catches by 9, targets by 6. Not quite in yardage. Callaway's got him by whatever that is, 13 yards. But their leading receiver is on pace to have 750 yards in a 17-game season with slinging Jameis Winston at quarterback. Whatever you say about Jameis Winston on the critical end, he is at least willing to throw the ball relentlessly, pretty aggressively downfield. To not have a receiver on pace for more than 750 yards, any receiver, is lunacy.
Yeah. It's just it's a different year. And I wonder how much they've been able to win games either with not much of an offense the other night against Seattle, or against early the Green Bay game. Still, it feels like a long time ago, but Jameis had 5 touchdowns on 21 passes, right? That was a run-heavy attack. The New England win was a run-heavy attack. So we'll see if they end up opening it up again. I think on the other side, the matchup to watch always is Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore. Mike Evans and Lattimore, they always, we saw Lattimore going head-to-head with DK Metcalf on Monday Night Football.
Lattimore needs the guy. You remember the video of John Henderson getting a pregame bitch slap to get himself up to psyched up? He had some guy, equipment staff or whatever, who before the game in the tunnel, this guy's job was to throw a full-on roundhouse slap to John Henderson's face to get him psyched up to go out and, rip some heads off. Lattimore needs that guy. Lattimore needs somebody to annoy him before a game.
Yeah.
Because every time he faces Mike Evans, it's like a physical battle. They hate each other, so he shows up and dominates. Against DK Metcalf, DK gets him with the early deep touchdown. Then DK starts going after him, in blocking, random run plays, gives him a shove. Lattimore shoves him back, penalty, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's the point. Lattimore is now pissed off. From that point on, he gave up 1 catch for 10 yards or something to DK.
Yeah.
Evidently, Marshawn Lattimore just needs to be irritated to the point where he's going to show up and play his best game.
That is the matchup every week. Every time they play, Lattimore versus Evans. In the first matchup last year, Evans caught 1 pass for 2 yards. It was a touchdown. It was late. In the second matchup, I think there was some garbage time, and they were down by 1 million for a while. Evans catches 4 for 64. And then in the divisional round, it's another 1 catch for 3 yards. It was a touchdown. So, the Bucs love to target Evans in the tight red zone. He did get those 2 touchdowns against the Saints last year, but Lattimore throughout, across the field pretty much did a good job. I think there was a pass interference penalty in there as well from Lattimore that doesn't show up in the stats, but there is another strong case for Lattimore perhaps taking Mike Evans out of this game. And that is where the lack of Antonio Brown. And remember, in the playoff game, Antonio Brown also missed that game in the divisional round. It was Brady's worst game. It was the Bucs' worst game throwing the football. And it puts more pressure on Chris Godwin. If Gronk is back, O.J. Howard's banged up. So just the other pieces of the Bucs offense need to step up here.
The strength and depth that Tampa Bay has at the receiver position is starting to get tested. Yeah. They still have it, and even if you take away, even if you take Antonio Brown out of the lineup, you take Mike Evans out of the game with Marshawn Lattimore, they've got a couple of other injuries. There's still places to go with the ball. Now, there's fewer than there used to be, but this is the point of the strength and depth. You still have a Chris Godwin, potentially a Gronk. You still have weapons that other teams would kill for, but now we get to see, is the depth as robust as we thought it was, because now you're having to lean on it.
I'm a little surprised the Saints pass rush is ranked 29th so far this season. They were much better with Geno Smith at quarterback the other night, but in against that Seattle offensive line. But that's another factor, right? When the Saints destroyed the Bucs last year. They did a really nice job up front. It was all of their various defensive linemen. Trey Hendrickson was there last year. You've got Davenport, Cameron Jordan. That was how they won last year. That has not been there this year for the Saints, other than last week, really, against the Seahawks. So it's another one of those. The coverage unit overall has been good for the Saints. They've made life difficult for teams on third down, but they're going to have to rush the passer similar to how they did against the Seahawks.
Yeah, and
that's a challenge.
It is. So far this year, their pass rush has basically been Cam Jordan. Like, he's got 24 total pressures. Nobody else has more than 13. You can read all those numbers in PFF Premium Stats, and if you use the promo code NFLPOD, you get 25% off. But big boost for the Saints this week. They are getting back David Onyemata, who has, whatever this is, 6-game suspension. Onyemata was one of the best pass rushing interior players last year. He had 49 total pressures a season ago, an overall PFF grade of 88.8. I mean, that is huge reinforcements to get back and start taking some of the attention away from Cameron Jordan and give the Saints another threat up front. It's going up against a really, top-level interior offensive line in Tampa Bay, as well as a quarterback that's getting rid of the ball as fast as anybody. But, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, Brady's got one of the lowest sack rates in the league, so it's a good matchup. If the Saints are going to pull the upset, what are you looking for here? Is it up front defensive line-wise? Is it Jameis has to make a few? They've been attacking down the field, right? It hasn't been that intermediate passing game. It's been down the field. They probably have to hit on a couple of those.
Yeah, they need receivers to make a few plays. Marquez Callaway, who we were buying into based off his preseason performance, he needs to show up a bit more. He's shown the ability to get open deep. He's shown the ability to moss people at the catch point, whether it's in preseason, whether it's a Hail Mary a couple of weeks ago. He's got that kind of talent. He needs to show up and do it because the Bucs don't have the corners that can stop it. That's your matchup advantage in this game. You have a quarterback willing to air it out, and you have corners that have not been good or don't have a pedigree. Go after them and try and hang with the Bucs in a shootout, and then rely on the fact that your defense has done a pretty good job of slowing down this specific offense in recent years.
So this is, I think, not the first big test, but a really big test for the Saints in this post-Drew Brees era. And what is Sean Payton going to do with Jameis Winston? They're sitting here at 4-2. Payton still continues to prove that they can win games without Drew Brees. But to your point, after the Packers game, who did they really prove it against? This is their first prove-it game at home in the Dome against the Bucs. Where are you going in this one?
I am going to lean with the Saints to cover the 5.5.
It's going to be tight, huh?
But lose.
All right, I'm going Bucs in this one. By the way, people asked us to keep track. So since I had a good week last week, I was 10-2 against the spread in the game.
Oh, now we're keeping track.
Yeah. So we'll start now. As starting in week 7, I'm 10-2.
What? All right. What was I?
I didn't keep track of your picks.
You're only keeping track of your picks.
All right, I'll keep track of yours from now on.
Yeah.
Let's get this going. Go. You got New Orleans. I'm just doing spread here.
Okay. New Orleans to cover.
So Nolans covers.
Nolans.
By the way, 5.5. So that's a lot of points in the Dome. But I'll say Brady, number 1 graded quarterback, keeps it up, has his best game against the Saints, and I think we start to see some separation at the top of the NFC South with the Bucs pulling away. So that's my prediction there. See if we can go 11-2, starting with that game. Special thanks to our friends over at Manscaped. It's football season. You know what that means? It means we're going for 2 here with our friends over at Manscaped. Blitzing through hairs has never been easier, and it's time for you to join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using promo code PFF. Over at manscaped.com. You get 20% off plus free shipping. It's 3 and out the window with all other trimmers. Go tame that Wildcat offense right now. Mm-hmm. It's the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. We've been here with Manscaped since the 1.0. And boy, has this thing taken your defense to the next level. This 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is a 7,000 RPM motor, new multi-function on-off switch that can engage a travel lock, and it gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Look at all those features the 4.0 brings to the table. It's also waterproof. Rain, snow, or sleet, that football weather is no match for the Lawnmower 4.0. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you know, as always, there is no 15-yard penalty for this clipping.
By far my favorite feature is all of the weatherproofing. I mean, look, it's a hard enough task in itself without having to contend with snow at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
Or, like the water from the shower, perhaps. But like the rain and the snow and the sleet.
Typically, sleet and snow do not come from your shower head.
True.
You know, if I was advertising the waterproof capabilities of something, that would make sense.
Yeah.
But no, they're advertising weatherproofing, full weatherproofing, not just showerproof. But if you're out there in the snow, apparently balls deep in the snow,
this works.
This works anyway.
Frozen tundra doesn't even matter.
I mean, how many times have you been balls deep in the snow? Which for you that's a lot of snow.
It's a lot of snow.
And have thought, if only.
Right.
If only I had a 7,000 RPM motor to buzz through these pubes in this depth of snow. How many times has that happened to you, Steve?
Good products solve problems that people have, and that's what Manscaped is here for. You get 20% off and free shipping. I love when you take it over. 20% off and free shipping with the promo code PFF at manscaped.com. 20% off with free shipping. Manscaped.com. Promo code is PFF. Stiff arm your pubes out of the playoffs, even in the snow, this season with Manscaped. Oh, that's amazing. Your ad-libbing skills are incredible.
It's not even I'm just fascinated by that as a thing, as a feature.
And I have a feeling jingle balls to the wall coming up soon.
Oh, I hope so.
Almost Christmas and, turkeys and Thanksgiving stuff. We got all sorts of opportunities here. Anyway, Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Browns are favored by 3.5. The Baker Mayfield debate, man, it is raging all over the interwebs. Do you pay him? Do you not? What's up with his shoulder? Mike Tomlin. Let me do something I hate here.
Uh-oh.
I'm just going to recite the quote that was sent out there that's probably completely out of context. But he said the Browns' offense looks the same no matter who's at quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, that's true, right?
Which probably means, like, are they doing different things schematically? Are they running outside zone and they running play action off of it? No, they run the same scheme. You know that's being interpreted as, well, why are you going to pay Baker Mayfield when you have Case Keenum? They're the same guy.
To be honest, in virtually no interpretation is it wrong at the moment. Like, Baker Mayfield right now, the offense does look the same, whether Baker or Case Keenum is a quarterback right this second. And that doesn't mean that Baker doesn't have a higher ceiling than Case Keenum or that he isn't a better player overall. But right now, there's not a ton of difference, and we saw that against Denver. Like, that offense looked pretty much the same, right down to the, bad mistake at quarterback every now and again. Like, Baker's had a ton of those this season. Case Keenum tried to throw an interception to the sideline. Like, it does look the same. Again, that isn't to say the one guy isn't better or more valuable or whatever. But if you're Mike Tomlin getting ready for a game, you don't give a crap which guy's playing, do you?
No, but that's again, not how it's been interpreted. I mean, Baker's got 4 games that were much better than what Keenum has played this year. 4 games, higher graded, better. He had a game, 2 games where he averaged over 10 yards per attempt. Of course, this offense is better with Baker Mayfield under center. Baker's worst games did come mostly with the bad shoulder. He had a rough one against the Vikings in the win, and against Arizona that last game where stats were bailed out by a Hail Mary. He did not play well at all. But the offense is better with Baker Mayfield. That is clear as day to me. It's better. Okay. Now, in a one-game setting, can Case Keenum play? Of course, he could play as well.
Well, it sounds like Baker's playing this game.
Yeah.
So it's not tremendously relevant.
Yeah, and we'll see what the shoulder looks like. All I know is he needs to get rid of the ball quicker. We've been using this snap to throw and time to throw stuff to tell a story quite a bit.
He needs to protect himself at this point. Like whatever about the efficiency and how he's actually playing, at this point you have a wrecked shoulder. Like, it was bad to begin with. You made it worse by getting speared into the ground. It's a disaster right now, and you are being held together by a shoulder brace, which is the only thing allowing you to keep playing at the moment. So unless you believe that your offensive line is going to be the best offensive line in the NFL and historically great to the point where you're never touched, you need to start playing as if you have a wrecked shoulder, which is get rid of the ball, err on the side of protecting yourself physically, and don't let yourself get re-injured.
This is what I want to see. As I was saying, we've been telling a lot of stories with this time to throw figure that we use a lot. That's snap to release. Baker Mayfield, he's up in the 2.9s the last 2 seasons. Now, part of that It's up from where he was earlier. Part of that is like the long play action. We actually had that email question. Does like a longer, like a heavy play action attack kind of affect time to throw? It does a little bit. Excuse me. Almost as much as scrambles, I'd say, but not as much. It affects it a little bit because you got longer developing concepts. And so 2.9 seconds. That's what he's averaging this year. A bunch of games over 3. That time to throw is generally reserved for players that do make a ton of plays outside of structure, which is not Baker Mayfield's game. And he's taking these hits that he shouldn't be taking.
He plays like in his brain he's Patrick Mahomes, or Russell Wilson or one of these quarterbacks. Like and he does make
Josh
some of those
Allen.
plays, right? There are times, like there was one I saw, I think this past the last game that he played, where he spins out of like 2 or 3 attempts, 2 or 3 sacks in the pocket, like dancing around, throws this like running jump pass thing and ends up completing it. And it was a good play, right?
Yeah.
But like he's not Mahomes, other than this year, does that like all the time and completes the passes, and it looks amazing and it's ridiculous. Baker Mayfield also does it all the time, but the strike rate or the success rate on those plays is way lower. And this was like, you can do that in college. You can't do as much of it in the NFL. Like there was a play against Minnesota where he sort of tried to, juke Donnell Hunter in the open field.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you don't have that level of athleticism anymore. You're dealing with hyper freak athletes, and you're not. Like you're a relatively good athlete for a normal dude. But against Donnell Hunter, it doesn't work. You just get hogtied and thrown to the ground. And by the way, when that's happening now, it's going to pop your shoulder out of its socket because you're now the dude from Lethal Weapon, where it's just going to pop out and pop back in every 2 seconds. So, again, Baker needs to change the way he's playing the game.
And that's the point I wanted to get to. I used this reference before. 2018 Aaron Rodgers, week 1, hurts his ankle. He was in the middle of a slump, kind of, for him, Aaron Rodgers, right? It might not have been 18. Maybe it was one of those years. He started playing better football when he stopped playing outside of structure. Right. There was a point in Aaron Rodgers' career where all he wanted to do was leave the pocket and make superhuman plays, and he'd, like, from me to you, would have this wide open pass that he should have made and he wouldn't take it. Can Baker change his style? Can he cut down on that time in the pocket by 0.4, 0.5 and just play within structure? And against the Steelers in their number 4 pass rush, which might be even better than that, when TJ Watt is out there and healthy and all those dudes that they're throwing at you, get rid of the ball, man. And I would love to see that. I would love to see a more play within the scheme Baker. And I know the narrative is, well, the scheme's elevated him. It's Stefanski, and Baker's a product of the system and all that stuff. But he still tries to play outside of structure a little bit too much. So I'd love to see that adjustment here due to the shoulder injury, and see if he could do it. It could be better for his development if he does that.
It feels like a game where both defenses could have an advantage. Like Cleveland's pass rush is really good right now. Myles Garrett will obviously be a better player than the guy he's going up against. Jadeveon Clowney should be as well. The interior has cooled down a little bit for Cleveland over recent weeks, but those two alone should cause Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers all kinds of issues. The question is on the other side, like, can Cleveland dominate on the ground the way they have against other teams in recent weeks? So they obviously destroyed the Chargers' run defense. They destroyed Denver's run defense. The Steelers, their defense is still really good, but they're like average in terms of yards per attempt on the ground. They give up 4.3 yards per carry. The NFL average is 4.3 yards per carry. If the Browns can do to that run defense what they've done to everybody else, all of a sudden everything looks better, right? Like that's how that offense is at its best, dominating on the ground.
The Browns will get Jack Conklin back, the star right tackle. Odell, but he's listed as questionable. OBJ listed as questionable. Nick Chubb, questionable. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. D'Ernest Johnson, of course, we saw tore it up on last Thursday night. Mm-hmm. So, the running back position might be fine for the Browns, but having Conklin back, having that run blocking unit intact, Wyatt Teller at right guard had a really nice game last week. So that front, that battle of the Browns offensive line against the Steelers front, it is a big one. And if they don't run the ball extremely efficiently, it puts even more pressure on Baker Mayfield. He can't try to play hero ball too much.
And that's probably a factor as well, the fact that the Browns are on this like mini bye, coming off the Thursday night.
They got a few extra, and the Steelers are off a real bye.
Right, but normally that would be like a big advantage towards Pittsburgh. I would say you mitigate that because the Browns had the extra few days rest as well coming off Thursday night.
It's it's Dallas and Minnesota, both teams coming off a bye. It's one of those weird weeks where there's no real advantage there. But the thing you mentioned on the other side, the Pittsburgh offensive line, we know it's been an issue from a run blocking standpoint, from a pass blocking standpoint. The pass blocking grade isn't bad because they don't have to block all that long. They do get somewhat protected by Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, it's still not great, but that's what I want to see is the Browns getting pressure, and Steelers, can they sustain offense? It has just been ugly across the board offensively this year for the Steelers.
Yeah, it has. It's not. I mean, I'm kind of vaguely surprised that this line is where it is. So it's 3.5 points. The Browns are favored. Green line has it as worth 4.2. Which is a lot. Like, that's one of the bigger discrepancies you're going to find in terms of green line versus the actual line.
Green line detests the Steelers offense. Really does.
Yeah. Even with that, like, all of the money is still coming in on Cleveland. Like, it is moving in that direction. It's probably going to move, like, with Baker Mayfield being likely to start. It's only heading in that direction. But remember, like, the Browns fairly well wrecked the Steelers the last time they played. I know Roethlisberger put up a ton of box score numbers, but he didn't play well.
The turnovers were crazy early in the game.
So, I mean, this kind of feels like a game where the Browns are definitely the better team. I know they've struggled
Big
this
Ben,
season.
hip/pectoral limited practice participant. Get those hip injuries.
Big Ben's injury report should just be the picture of him, covered in ice with the saran wrap stuff.
Questionable every practice, every week.
Questionable, everything. Iced up.
He'll stick it out, but he's questionable.
Yeah.
And my bigger concern is Chase Claypool being questionable. I have not come off my take that the Steelers offense pretty much goes as Chase Claypool goes, because he's always a big play threat. I know Deontay Johnson has that ability. I know Najee has he's done enough of the nice things that Steelers fans are really excited about him and everything, but he can't do much behind the run blocking that he has. So to me, it's this Claypool got to be Big Ben needs to flip the field with a couple throws per game, and Chase Claypool's his best bet for that. And I really think the Steelers offense is limited when you don't have Claypool. Play the boom or bust game and try to create those chunk plays. There's something in me that's leaning Steelers. Like, Tomlin's a good coach that is going to get them to 500 or a little bit better this year with a team that's not great. And it feels like one of those games where maybe Tomlin gets the Steelers to start questioning, people to start questioning. Oh, maybe we were too low on the Steelers as they go to 4-3 in this game. That potential's there.
It really is. I mean, they're 500, and there aren't a ton of good reasons for them to be 500, other than the fact that Mike Tomlin is a really good head coach.
He was trashing the USC and LSU rumors that he was going to leave.
Yeah, he was mad.
I mean, I wouldn't want to go recruit either.
Neither would I, but I'm not sure I'd be mad at somebody asking the question.
I'm not sure why. I mean, people started rumors, whether they're founded or not, but they try to find, this guy's a good coach. He might be sick of Pittsburgh, Maybe he just wants to leave Big Ben because you don't have a quarterback next year.
Yeah.
I think they were just hypothesizing. Either way, 3.5, man. I'm having a tough time feeling good about the Browns there. But again, Greenline really doesn't have faith in that Pittsburgh offense.
I hammer the Browns. The Browns and the points. I think they should.
Even with the Mayfield injury concern.
Yeah, I don't love that, but I'm hoping.
He has not been efficient.
Correct. But I'm hoping that their run game is as successful as it's been regardless, and that will take a lot of the pressure off his shoulders.
Now, remember, when we pick games here on the show, it's us, and it's a lot of, I feel this, and you feel that, and green line's the standard here. That's what you want to use over time. So if I go away from it, it's just, it's a little touchy-feely. I feel good about Pittsburgh here. Covering. Yeah. Cleveland's going to win. It's going to be a good AFC North battle. So you're going Cleveland.
Yeah.
Even though I'm 10-2.
Yeah.
Cleveland.
It's almost like I don't trust there's a signal in that noise.
Oh, no. I'm going to definitely be, 83% for the rest of the year.
Yeah. That seems likely.
That won't fail. So I'm going to keep winning, and you could keep winning over at DraftKings.
Wow.
Big win this week. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. They got you covered because new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game. So you just pick a team to win, and if they win, you win $200 in free bets. You win a chicken dinner. It's that simple. What? That's me ad-libbing. People wanted to hear that.
That's even worse than the winner.
That's actually a lie. You will not win a chicken dinner. You will win $200 in free bets. Winner, winner. Yes. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. And DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and you win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win with promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Saw one of our listeners tag, I think it was Robert Mays, suggesting he goes, you got to speed through the terms and conditions.
Up his terms and conditions.
He offered me up maybe to Mays to help out on his podcast.
Somebody
to do T&C.
I can't remember who it was. Somebody posted like a video of them doing the terms and conditions to prove that it wasn't like a pre-recorded thing that they drop in every show, that he does it,
Mays?
live every time. No, it wasn't Mays.
Someone else did it?
Somebody else posted a video on Twitter. I can't remember who it was though. But they were proud of their terms and conditions ability.
Get out of the chat.
What?
Get out of the chat.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying, if you need
somebody proved it.
If you win your chicken dinner, you just email Steve. He'll hook you up. Chick-fil-A. You got one of those lifetime cards for Chick-fil-A?
Oh, we crush them, Chick-fil-A, the Palazzolos. We've got our order saved in the app and everything.
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A, you want to sponsor this thing? I mean, I'm there twice a week.
They're one of those companies that has like the gold card, a lifetime Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
Yeah. You don't have one of those? No.
We've got a family of 6 to feed, and Chick-fil-A's conducive to that when you need to eat out. So, working our way up to the gold card. All right, let's go Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. Am I reading this right? Colts are favored by 1.5.
I hope so, because I put in the odds.
So Tennessee,
let's check.
Got all the feels right now, trending in the right direction. Just beat the Bills and the Chiefs.
Green line has it at -1 for the Colts, but yes, they are favored.
Interesting. So people are buying into the Colts turning their season around. Obviously, again, Tennessee is in this, are they the best team in the AFC discussion just because they just beat the Bills and the Chiefs in their last 2 games. They still have this loss against the Jets looming over their head. Beat the Colts back in week 2. So, yeah, I think Vegas is feeling the Colts being a lot better than they were earlier in the season. I think we're seeing that on the field. Carson Wentz is playing a clean brand of football. Like, he is taking care of the ball, as much as I joked about the other night. It was the rainstorm.
Yeah.
He should have had 3 or 4 interceptions, but overall, in non-rainstorm games, Wentz is taking care of the football.
Carson Wentz has 4 turnover-worthy plays on the season, and 3 of them came in a 3-minute stretch the second after I tweeted that he only had 1 turnover-worthy play this season in a rainstorm in San Francisco. So, that game, he has a PFF game grade of 46.1. Every other game was at least 60 or better, and one of the games was 60. Every other game is really good. He was coming off the Houston game, the best single game grade of his NFL career. Anything he did in 2017 didn't touch that game. Now, okay, it's Houston, you would kind of expect that, but still. So yeah, he has been playing pretty well. If you take away that rainstorm game, he has 1 turnover-worthy play on the season. So as much as it's kind of a joke that the statistical run he's on of X number of pass attempts between interceptions only exists because the NFL readjusted the fumble interception thing that he threw in San Francisco.
Right. It got hit just a little.
But it is kind of legit that if you take away the 3 turnover-worthy plays in the rainstorm, he has 1 on the year, which is, last season his turnover-worthy play rate was 4.4%, which is really high. So he's gone from one of the most turnover-worthy, not one of the most turnover-worthy, a very turnover-worthy prone quarterback to a guy that isn't putting the ball in harm's way very much at all. Even with the 3 in the rainstorm, his rate is 1.5%, which is the 3rd best in the NFL. So, yeah.
He's cleaned up everything.
If you're Frank Reich, you have to be feeling pretty good about how that reclamation project has gone so far. And that's a massive difference maker. Add in the fact that Jonathan Taylor looks like a monster right now, that bringing in the likes of T.Y. Hilton makes a difference to the offense. Michael Pittman is making those plays. Mo Alley Cox is a monster in the red zone. Like, the passer rating of throwing the ball in that guy's direction is insane for his career. So all of a sudden, the people that were painting the picture preseason of, like, how good can this receiving core be? Well, if these 12 things all work out, it's pretty good. We're kind of close to that at this point. Like, most of the things that needed to break in that direction have broken in that direction. About the only thing that's gone wrong is they lose Paris Campbell for the season the second he makes a big play.
Yeah, I mean, the Pittman development is a big one. He's caught 75% of his targets, 14.5 per catch. He's got over 500 receiving yards and a high PFF grade of 78 receiving. So Pittman's emergence, which I always thought was possible, is huge. Again, I would love to have them have more on the perimeter, but Wentz playing good football, and they've got some guys, some playmakers there. And I think Indianapolis, it was a slow start, but they're starting to just become what we expected, which is a good competitive team, and it was tough to separate them and the Titans on paper coming into the season, right?
Yeah, and this is now it's kind of a must-win for them given where the two teams are in their respective divisions. The Colts are definitely righting the ship, but they're still under 500 and can't afford too many more slip-ups. Tennessee, on the other side, are 5-2, comfortably at the top of the division, but suddenly this game goes in Indy's direction and things look a little bit different. It becomes a lot closer again.
In the first matchup, Derrick Henry was, held to 4 yards per carry, had got his 28 carries in there. There's always pressure on that defensive front to just, beat some blocks and, keep him to some negative plays, put more pressure on that passing offense. But last week, Tannehill was really good. So again, the Titans they've got the ability on offense. If Derrick Henry's not there, Tannehill can win games for you. They're starting to figure that out. My concern in this whole thing is, as much as I raved on Monday morning about what Tennessee did defensively last week against the Chiefs, with the guys they did it with Greg Mabin and Dane Cruikshank and all that stuff, can they actually keep that up? Tennessee's got 3 legitimately good coverage grades as a defensive unit the last 3 weeks, which includes the Bills game, where they gave up a lot, but they hung tough with backups in the secondary against the Bills. And then last week, since the second half against the Bills, they've played really well defensively. I don't know if they can keep that up. I've got concerns about the Titans, especially on the back end there, besides Kevin Byard.
Yeah, I think that's a real concern, and Indianapolis suddenly has the kind of offense that can actually take advantage of it. I was just looking up some Derrick Henry numbers against Indy over the last few years. So going back to the start of 2019, Derrick Henry has like an average grade against them so far. He's averaging only 4 yards per carry. They have done a pretty good job of slowing down Derrick Henry. Sorry, 5.4 yards per carry, 4 yards after contact per carry, but the grade is not as high. They're kind of giving him yardage, but not getting killed by him necessarily.
Right. And so they've done a good job there. So it potentially becomes another, Tannehill-driven game. Julio Jones, the hamstring, still dealing with it. That's going to be a season-long issue here.
I think the Colts are the kind of defense that likes to – they're the kind of defense that likes to invite the run generally because to protect the back end. I think they're the kind of defense – this is the problem of sort of defending Derrick Henry, is that I think a lot of teams go into a game knowing that they're going to kind of – rally to stop Derrick Henry for like 3, 4, 5 yards every play and be happy if that's the result. But that's what happens when you get to the fourth quarter is you've been doing a really good job of that all game long, and then all of a sudden Henry goes off and beats you for like a 95-yard run in the fourth quarter, and everything you just did went to hell because of that. So that's kind of the interesting thing here is, can the Colts do a good job against Derrick Henry for 4 quarters? And actually, interestingly, if you look at just the fourth quarter since the start of 2019, they really do a good job of him against the fourth quarter.
When everyone else is getting tired, the Colts are not.
In the fourth quarter, the Colts have allowed Derrick Henry just 3.2 yards per carry. He has a grade of 60 and just 3 broken tackles on 26 attempts. So while everyone else is falling off Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter, and that's when he's getting his yardage, the Colts have actually somehow managed to do a really good job of that in recent years. So
again, that if they do that again, can Tannehill in this passing attack? We saw last week A.J. Brown was the guy. He took over. Julio's been in and out. Can the Titans passing attack take over if Henry, gets slowed down a little bit here?
And the Colts are in a similar spot in terms of not having very many corners you can trust right now.
Yeah.
And in Michael Pittman and T.Y. Hilton is formidable enough, and that's a challenge, but like A.J. Brown and Julio Jones is a different level.
I'm a little surprised by the spread here. If I was guessing, I would figure the Tennessee Titans are going to be favored. So I'm going to lean Titans here.
Yeah, I mean it's only -1 right now, so on a neutral field, Vegas does think Tennessee is the slightly better team.
Yeah.
Which is probably fair, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, Indy's trending in the right direction. They're moving in the right direction. It is one of the games of the week because it's the division battle. I do hate when the division games are over by week 7 or 8. Like this, Patriots Jets are done. This will end their battles. The Colts and Titans, especially for the two teams that are going to be competing for the division. So it's as big as it gets for Indy. But Tennessee keeps answering the bell, man.
They do.
My final question here: can Mike Vrabel, for the 3rd week in a row here for the Titans, you go Bills on Monday Night Football, then the Chiefs, now your division rival. It is so tough to keep your team up.
Double letdown spot. Last week was a letdown spot. They answered the call again. Now it's a double letdown. I do think that Tennessee is a better team. On the other hand, I think Indy needs this more, and it is a potential letdown spot for Tennessee, having come off those 2 huge games for them. So for that reason, I think the Colts are going to sneak it and therefore cover. Not necessarily, but yeah, cover.
Our power rankings have the Titans with an 87% chance to win the division title. I don't have the numbers offhand, but I imagine that drops. That drops significantly
right.
if the Colts can win this game. I'll take Tennessee, though. And you're going Indy?
Yeah.
All right, you're a Carson Wentz believer, as I always knew. All right, New England Patriots at the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers by 5 at home. Saw a stat that CBS Sports tweeted out yesterday. The Patriots, since week 14 of last year, have only beaten the Jets and the Texans.
Yikes.
That's a little
bad.
Ugly.
Yeah.
This year, those are their 3 wins, Jets and the Texans. 3-4 Patriots. This felt, from a New England standpoint, that was kind of the story of their season last year, right? It was like if they play a team that's not that good, they'll win. If they play a team that's good, they'll lose, and they'll end up close to 500, and that's generally what happened last year for the Patriots. So at some point, they're 5-point underdogs against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, a team that before they got beat down by the Ravens, we were like, oh, this is one of the best teams in the AFC. I don't think that's really changed a whole lot. The Chargers are up there, but they've got some bouncing back to do after 2 weeks ago.
They do. It becomes an interesting schematic battle because, like, the Ravens and the Browns, the last 2 teams that the Chargers have faced, are dominant on the ground. They've been able to fairly well have their way with the Chargers' run defense.
True.
The Browns in particular racked up whatever the hell that was, like 230 yards and 7 yards per attempt on the ground or whatever. It's like lunacy. The Patriots, we've been saying, heading into the season, were kind of built for that ground and pound offense because their offensive line has been banged up and missing through COVID and just not the way it was supposed to be. They haven't really done a great job of that. They haven't been this unstoppable power rushing type of offense that we were expecting to see. But does that change against a team like the Chargers, who A, will invite you to run, and B, have not been tremendously good at stopping you once you have done that?
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots, as far as like their actual rushing grades, they're number 2 in the NFL. Damian Harris leading the way. Like they are running the ball effectively.
But they're number 22 in yards per attempt as a team.
No, I get it. I'm just saying they still have that ability especially when the offensive line is back together. So I do think they have a chance to really run the ball effectively against the Chargers. Again, not to overrate in-game decision making, but you've got Brandon Staley being on the uber aggressive side, and you've got Bill Belichick probably on the more conservative side. That could end up being a determination in this game. There was a good point. Is it Paganetti? I've never actually said his name out loud. It's on Twitter. He was the Ryan P. I'll look it up to be official here. He was the he worked with Doug Peterson directly. He was like the guy working on 4th downs and the whole thing with Doug Peterson in Philadelphia. And he was responding to Pro Football Talk saying, hey, there's been a record number of blowouts this year. And it was, I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and Ryan quote tweeted and said, well, it's because teams are more aggressive on 4th down, and it just leads to a wider range of outcomes. Going forward on fourth down increases your win probability, but it also increases your blowout probability if you lose. That was the Chargers 2 weeks ago, right? They had all of these fourth down conversions the first 5-6 weeks of the season. They get into this game against the Ravens. They go for 2 4th-and-1s in their own territory, which increased their win probability before the play. But once they failed at that play, it massively increased the ability of the Ravens to blow them out because they were essentially handing the Ravens points.
Right.
So the point I just wanted to make here is that you're seeing that in the NFL, right?
I mean, they were already down 18 at the time.
No, I get it.
They were already getting blown out, but it certainly poured gas on it.
They were, but I'm just saying we're starting to see more of that. And for the Chargers, it's not necessarily about these decisions. It's when you convert, it's moving the needle in a positive direction. Last week or 2 weeks ago, it just wasn't.
Sure. It's tough to. A lot of people were kind of hammering on that idea of like, well, this is the other side of the coin of finally when you stop getting those fourth down calls. Because particularly the Ravens game, like they were already screwed. I mean, they were done. Like this was a roll of the dice to try and get back in the game, down 18 in your own territory. Like if you didn't have that drive, you were basically done for the day. So they went for it, they didn't get it, and then at that point you're really done for the day. So I don't know. I don't even know how much that really affected that game at all. The bigger concern for them is like, can they just get back on track? Like, can they not get blown out immediately in a game and go back to the team they were, and then we'll see where the variance lands on the fourth down decisions. And I think a big part of that really rests on how they do against what New England wants to do on offense, which is, establish the run, dominate the ground, don't ask too much of Mac Jones, just be efficient and keep on ticking along.
What the Patriots want to do is throw the underneath stuff, run the ball like you said. I mean, those are the things that's what you would do against the Chargers.
The Patriots want to be like the 06 Patriots again. They want to go back to like early.
The 06 Patriots were trash offense, like from the pass game standpoint, with no receivers.
But like, remember, there was a good stretch of time where it was like, Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. He's got all these Super Bowl rings. Why does he not grade that well at PFF? And it's like, well, because most of what he's doing is this dink and dunk offense. It's high efficiency, but it's not particularly A, difficult, or B, effective. And, the team overall is great. He's winning a ton of games. Everything franchise-wise is fantastic, but Brady is not playing as well as Peyton Manning or whichever the quarterback was at the time. Like, it wasn't until later in his career.
That was early PFF days.
Yes, it wasn't until like later in his career where Brady became a much greater part of the offense and a bigger driving force. The people that have talked about there were kind of two dynasties within the dynasty of New England. The first 10 years was Belichick driven. The second 10 years was Brady driven. I think that is reflected in PFF grades as well. It feels like they want to go back to the first year or the first years of the dynasty and make it Belichick driven again, which reduces the role of the quarterback and makes Mac Jones into the sort of early version of Brady, where you're like, you just pick up the 5 yards every time, take the easy stuff, don't screw it up. Like, I don't want to use the term game manager because it's pejorative. It's worse than he was. But that kind of quarterback, right, where you're not expected to carry the whole thing, just facilitate everything. This is the game to kind of like play that game, right? So the Chargers have the second best EPA per play defensively on 20-plus yard throws, 3 for 23 when targeting 20-plus against the Chargers. Brandon Staley, as much as we talk about inconsistency defensively, those are the types of numbers Brandon Staley's defense had last year. Has he legitimately found the way to just cut down on deep pass completions and explosive plays? Now, to the detriment of his run defense, to the detriment maybe of the underneath stuff, but it is impressive how consistent last year's Rams and this year's Chargers have been at just avoiding those big plays. So that puts the Mac Jones spreading the ball out underneath and the run game in the spotlight for New England here against the Chargers. Yeah, I think there's something to the idea that he has figured out the appropriate defense to stop explosive plays. And it's not the first time that's happened. Like, effectively, that's what the Tampa 2 was designed to do way back in the day, until teams figured out that there are still ways you can attack the Tampa 2 even in terms of explosive plays. Like once you understand the rules, you can find the holes, the cover 2 shot down the sideline. You can find the rules that expose the middle linebacker one-on-one with a speedy slot receiver down the middle of the field. And then eventually the Tampa 2 stopped being the defense that would take away the explosive play. And that's why people don't run it anymore. But Staley has developed this defense that has gone back to solving the problem. It's figured out the mechanism for taking away those deep shots right at the time where the league was kind of living by those. You know, the way the defenses had gone between the period of the Tampa 2 going out of vogue, and now, like, passing game had pivoted to more deep shots and more explosive plays and those kinds of things. So Staley has kind of taken that away first and foremost as the principle of his defense. Now the question is, can you be good enough up front to avoid like doing that at the expense of giving up, 6-7 yards of carry on the ground, at which point teams will pivot to just smashing you off the field.
They might be this offseason just looking, find those defensive tackles that could play the run without help, find another linebacker maybe to help in that area.
Yeah, like really invest hard on like impact defensive linemen.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it's fun to watch with what Staley's bringing to the team. It's a pivotal game for both teams. Chargers are 4-2, trying to keep pace with the Raiders and the inevitable Chiefs coming back in the AFC West. From a New England standpoint, they could easily do what I just described earlier. Chargers this week, they're the underdogs. They're at the Panthers next week. You could say, hey, Patriots are going to win that game. And then they're facing the Browns the week after that. And so they're the worst team, better team, worst team. If they keep winning and losing when they should, you got another, 500-ish type of season. If the Patriots are going to be a playoff team, this is the type of game they got to win here this week. Chargers by 5.5. Is it 5? No, 5. Chargers by 5. Where are you going in this one?
I don't like the size of that spread.
I hear you.
But I do think that the Chargers are a significantly better team, even if I don't love the schematic matchup with that Patriots run game, what they're going to do. I think it's a game that actually stylistically goes towards New England, but they're just not very good right now.
Last year's matchup means nothing, but the Patriots traveled to L.A. and beat them 45-0. Blocked punts and the whole thing. I mean, the Chargers were a game management mess, but it was also a game where Belichick's defense did a really nice job against Justin Herbert. One of the few times a defense did that. I'm leaning New England, not because of the 45-0 last year. I believe in all the Chargers stuff. Just the spread. 5 is tight. I mean, 5 is big.
Yeah.
I think the Patriots are that team. I don't know if they're over the hump as a playoff team, but they are a tough competitive team.
I think the Chargers win, but New England covers.
There we go. So we're both saying New England to cover.
You're not going for the win?
What?
You were talking the Patriots. You're not going to them to win?
No, Chargers are a better team. Chargers win.
Coward.
Chargers going to win this one. Different team this year. Dallas Cowboys at Minnesota Vikings. This might be one of the games of the week too. Cowboys by 2.5 at Minnesota, and is this a shootout potential here with Dak and the Cowboys? That passing offense, the way Cousins is playing, or is this one of those games where Minnesota has a random 14-10 game that they stumble into?
The Vikings are so hard to place because they're going to play everybody close. They'll play the worst teams in the NFL close. They'll play the best teams in the NFL close. And it's hard to tell what kind of game that will be within each of those games.
I'll continue to be surprised by this because I thought Minnesota, the way they played last year, the way they started the season, their pass defense was not great. But they are third best EPA per play versus the pass now.
Yeah, their defense
definitely improved.
Their defense is slowly starting to look more like old Mike Zimmer defenses. It's actually holding up its end of the bargain. It's approaching a very good level. It's the number 7 ranked defense right now in terms of PFF's kind of ELO ratings. It's got some very good numbers statistically in terms of some of the advanced metrics we look at. It has become a very good defense, despite still having some kind of questionable spots in terms of personnel. But it'll probably do a reasonable job against this Dallas offense, which is cooking. It looks phenomenal right now.
Biggest improvement going from the very worst pass rush grade in 2020, now up to 5th for the Vikings this year. Coverage grade. I mean, everything is better defensively, especially after a slow start. Those elements, though, again, I think the Vikings are a playoff caliber team. They pass the ball well. They stop the pass for how as consistent as you can be in that particular area. Those are elements of a very good team. I'm expecting I'm expecting a really good game. It's primetime Cousins. It's another one of those Cousins narrative games. Right? Island game. You know, you can make a fourth quarter comeback at 1 o'clock, but you got to do it in an island game here.
Yeah. Another interesting thing is going to be how healthy is Dak Prescott. Had the calf injury, was it like at the last play of the game?
Yeah, it was right at the end, I believe.
Hobbled off. It was always being talked about as was going to play in this game, presumably is still going to play in this game. But like a calf injury is one of those injuries that you don't have the same mobility if you have an injured calf. And like it's an important part of his game, the ability to be able to move around, to make things happen, to, you know, not necessarily be a dynamic part of the rushing attack, but his mobility is an important feature of his game. And if that isn't there anymore, that's certainly going to help the Vikings on defense. Whether it's enough is, you know, another question. But
see if Trayvon Diggs can get another interception. His stats are just fascinating. And look, again, full acknowledgement, when we assign stats to coverage plays, it doesn't necessarily mean that player should be completely, you know, responsible for every last yard. But targets into Trayvon Diggs' primary coverage, 419 yards at 19 yards per reception. Yeah. Inflated maybe a touch by that 75-yarder, but still, like that's a huge number. Like you take out the 75-yarder, it's still probably 17. It's a huge number, plus 6 penalties from Trayvon Diggs. So he has been the epitome of boomer bust. He's made some incredible plays on the ball, those 7 interceptions, 4 more pass breakups. Ball skills have been really awesome from Diggs. But he's another guy that you can attack. So it's just like a different matchup, right? Like when you talk about Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans, it's Lattimore who's just always in tight coverage, who might completely shut down a Mike Evans, or it's just going to have like a couple hard-fought completions, right? In this one, if it's, you know, Diggs, when he faces a Justin Jefferson or an Adam Thielen, it's one of those where it could be, you know, 4 or 5 first downs, 7 or 8 first downs, but also an interception and 2 pass breakups, right? It's going to be those high-end, high-leverage types of plays, and those matchups could help determine this game.
Still 17.6 yards per reception if you take out the entirety of week 6.
There you go.
So
well done. Thank you.
Not just that one play, but if you take out that entire game, it's still 17.6.
So Diggs isn't the guy that you just avoid necessarily, right?
Well,
it's just how much do you want to test him?
Yeah. He now becomes this. So some of his interceptions have been a little bit fluky, but some of them have been incredible plays
awesome.
Where he goes to find the ball in coverage in a way most cornerbacks don't. So you now have to be aware that if you're going to target his coverage, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, you have to be careful, right? It's just, there's a danger now. Like there are some cornerbacks you can go after all day long, and even if they're going to make plays and they're going to stop some receptions, you're not really concerned that they're picking the ball off, right? They're just not that type of player. They're not, when the ball is in the air, they're not treating it as if they're the wide receiver. Trayvon Diggs does. Right. And there are certain cornerbacks that do that, where even if you can go after those guys, you just have to be aware that when the ball is in the air, they act like they're the wide receiver. And this is why I keep coming back to this Antonio Cromartie comp for him. That was what Antonio Cromartie was like. You could go after Cromartie, but you have to be aware that when the ball is in the air, he treats it as if he's the wideout.
With great length, ball skills, and all of that, right?
So Diggs is like that. You can go after him, but you have to know that when that ball is airborne, he is making a play on it as if he's the wide receiver. And if he's better than your wide receiver at doing that, you could have a problem. Or your ball placement needs to be perfect to the point where he doesn't have a play on it at any point. So it's just something you have to be aware, which becomes interesting if you're Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. Like, how do you approach that? Do you say that Cousins is good enough and our receivers are good enough and he's accurate enough that we know we can beat him and we can put the ball where he can't get it and Justin Jefferson will be able to beat him and it's not a risk? We will take the variance and go after the fact that we're better. Or do you say that it's one play? Like, all it takes is one play, pick six the other direction, and like we're done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they have to force it down the field to him. Cousins has been really good at the short and then the intermediate level. He's been great up to 20 yards. Generally a place where I think you can attack this Cowboys defense, and I think that might play into the Vikings' hands. I think they move the ball.
Because I think there's a really interesting discussion to be had, not for now, but in the future, about like, what is a good game for a cornerback today, right? So Eric Crocker, I think, was asking this about Lattimore versus DK Metcalf. Like, is it a good game to hold DK Metcalf to 2 catches for 90 yards, one of which was a touchdown, and nothing else, like, all game long, right? Which I think is a fair question. Like, Lattimore effectively shut down Metcalf for the entire game, but the one time he lost, it was a deep touchdown. It was a big touchdown, right? Is that a win? Is it a wash? Is it a lot? Like, what is that? And then I think the same thing is true for Diggs. It's like, if Diggs gets a pick 6 on you, or if he even just gets a turnover, how much do you need to get him for it to be an even deal, an offset, a wash? Like, how much production do you need to get against Diggs if he gets you for a pick? Because that's essentially the game he's playing right now, right? Is so far he's averaging more than a pick a game. He's shooting for the interception. So you need to get a reasonable amount of production on him to just offset that, let alone to win overall in, like, net terms.
Yeah, somebody posed the question because I think it was Seth Walder over at ESPN said, EPA when targeting Trevon Diggs is, like, horrible, right?
Yeah, it's like minus 37
and
cumulative.
I use the stat too. I think it was minus 0.7 per target or whatever it is.
Which is, of course, I mean, it's all interceptions, right? Those are the most amongst the most negative EPA plays you can get. So if you have a guy who's got a ton of interceptions, he is going to have a ridiculous EPA figure attached to him.
So my answer to that, because somebody's like, well, you need to bake this into the grades. And I was like, well, here's the deal. The grades are saying how well did a guy play and how much did he contribute to production, right? Whereas EPA, again, a more of a team-centric stat, is looking at
it's
just
like passer rating versus grade, right?
Yes.
Like the passer rating of targeting Trevon Diggs this season.
It's probably in the 40s.
It's 53.5 right now.
Despite all the big plays.
And if you take out that week 6, it goes into the 30s, right?
Yeah.
So the passer rating against him is insane, but his coverage grade is not as insane because they're different things. It's like, we know all the different ways that passer rating can be skewed. I mean, EPA is vulnerable to many of the same flaws. It's just a slightly different way of presenting it.
And the point I wanted to make is the production that the cornerback gives up is just so dependent on the quarterback, the receiver, the decision the quarterback makes. Like, Trevon Diggs can have great coverage, and if you don't throw to him, he can't make a play on the ball. If you do, he can. So one of his interceptions, like a drop by Leonard Fournette that kind of like falls into his hands, I mean, that's luck. It's a nice play. Good job you catching it. Again, you made the point, though. A lot of Trevon Diggs' interceptions have been fantastic.
Yeah.
And he deserves a lot of credit for that. So at some point, though, if we're going to keep talking about the Chiefs' turnovers have to change, I mean, at some point, Trevon Diggs isn't going to catch one pass per game, right?
Yeah. There's a difference, I think, between Trevon Diggs is a ball hawk style of corner who will probably get more interceptions than most corners throughout his career and is a constant threat to do that. And Trevon Diggs will have like this level of interceptions all the time. Even those guys, Asante Samuel, Antonio Cromartie, even those guys you think of as like great ball skills, ball hawking type of corners, they don't have like multiple consecutive seasons of 10 interceptions.
Right.
It's just not that it's not that doable. Like the ability you have to be a ball hawk is what gets you to 5, 6, 7 a year on a consistent basis, rather than like 2, 3, 4. But you don't like the pace he's on right now is unreasonably unsustainable and not going to continue.
I'm just rewatching some of the pick 6 against Jalen Hurts, one pick against Sam Darnold where he's breaking on a quick out, great zone coverage pick against Sam Darnold that probably should have never been thrown. The number of times that the Vikings just hit their outside receivers on those speed outs and everything, that's the stuff I'm looking for. Do the Vikings hit him with a double move or two, which is what the Patriots came back and did after he had that pick 6.
But those are the kind of plays that he makes more dangerous than other corners. Because if your placement is off on those speed outs, like that's Diggs going back for 6.
And Cousins has been the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. This is why I love this matchup, because if Cousins keeps playing the way he does and Diggs keeps making the plays that he does, like something's got to give. Like if they both play at a similar level here.
So what's interesting is, again, like Antonio Cromartie in 2007 had a 12 interception season, including the playoffs. Did they make the playoffs that year? I don't know. 12 interceptions. Anyway. So
Bunch in the playoffs.
They did.
Once we're in the playoffs, too.
2 of them were in the playoffs, yeah. So you would say that, okay, all of a sudden you've put the league on notice. Now you've got this ball hawk corner. You don't go near that guy anymore. Stop throwing the ball in his direction. The next year, he had 102 targets. Like his target rate went up. His targets went up by 28 targets the next season. So it's not like the league looked at this and was like, this guy will pick the ball off at any opportunity. Let's stop throwing the ball in his direction. The league kind of looked at him and went, all right, it's risky, but we know that you can still exploit this guy for significant yardage and significant plays. Let's keep going back to the well. And his target, like he had 100 targets in 2 of the next 3 seasons, never had a double-digit interception season again. I'm not saying that, I do like the comp of Trayvon Diggs and Antonio Cromartie. I'm not saying Diggs' career is going to go the same way, but I am saying that the league will probably keep testing him because he hasn't given them reason enough to not.
Diggs, by the way, officially questionable, limited participant with an ankle injury.
Perfect.
Wednesday, after all that, talking about him. But I still think I expect him to play, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Where are you going with this game? I'm talking myself back and forth on this. I do think Minnesota, I don't know. I think Minnesota matches up well against Dallas.
Do you, though?
Yeah.
Do you really?
In some areas. Dallas, actually, normally the Dan Quinn defense is not great against the underneath stuff. Dallas, in part because of the way Diggs has played, the underneath stuff, they have been really effective this year.
They have. I think their defense looks a little bit better than it is because of turnovers and Trayvon Diggs and things like that.
I'm back and forth, man. It's Dallas by 2.5, Minnesota getting 2.5 at home here.
Stupidly small sample size, but if the Vikings have actually found a decent left tackle in Christian Darrisaw, that's so important for that team. Like, we talk all the time about how vulnerable Kirk Cousins is to the deficiencies of his pass protection and what happens when you just move him off his spot. If they have upgraded from like Rashad Hill, who was a bad left tackle, to Christian Darrisaw, who looks pretty good right out of the gate, if that materializes over any extended period of time, I mean, that is genuinely, that moves the needle on this offense in a way not that many moves they could have made would have done.
So where are you going with this one?
Dallas.
Is this the 90th straight week you've picked against the Vikings?
I'm not buying into it yet. Are they that good?
I typed in Minnesota and then later typed in Dallas. So always go with your second instinct on this.
Green Line is in agreement with me. They have
good, and me too. Then go Dallas.
Green Line has the difference as significantly larger than the line is.
Go check out Green Line, 25% off using the promo code NFL.
Also, by the way, the bettors kind of agree with me in terms of most of the money is coming in on Minnesota, but most of the bets are going in on Dallas.
That's because all the bettors listen to the PFF NFL podcast to get all their info.
It is kind of fascinating the way those two numbers can be vastly different, though. Like, number of tickets is essentially like, what is the average bet happening, right? Who's like, all the bets that go in, where is that? But then the money is like, where are the whales throwing in?
You're right.
Where is the Dana Whites of the world who's like just dropping a few $100K on the weekend for giggles? Like, where's Dana throwing his money?
The whales. It is good. You get all that breakdown over at PFF Greenline, PFF.com. All right, Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons favored by 3 here at home. Another NFC South battle. What are you looking for in this one? Matt Ryan playing really well these last few weeks, by the way. Can he keep it up against a little bit better defense?
Matt Ryan's been playing really well, and they are using Kyle Pitts the way we were saying all the way along. You need to use Kyle Pitts. They are just, I think it was Nate Tice described it as the way you use your best athlete in high school. Just like line him up anywhere you want in the formation and just treat him as your number one read every single time, right? Yeah. And that's how you do it. And that's what they're doing with Kyle Pitts. Position designation is not helpful for Kyle Pitts. Like, don't pigeonhole him into one specific thing and say he's a tight end or he's a wide receiver. Like, he's just the best athlete you have on the field. Doesn't matter where you play him. Line him up wherever you want. Have him as the guy that you go to on this play and only go to everybody else if he's covered. Like, that's essentially what the Falcons are doing. And all of a sudden, that means that Calvin Ridley is like a secondary option again, which is where he, is at his best when he was secondary to Julio Jones. Cordero Patterson is like an outlet option now. Like, this offense has the potential to be something pretty cool if that continues.
There's a chance. So we might see some Jeremy Chin versus Kyle Pitts. That could be a nice battle for years to come. Jeremy Chin, kind of the do-it-all Another guy, you don't put a position on him. Safety / slot / linebacker for the Panthers. Stephon Gilmore could play. I'm seeing him listed as out as of that was a couple days ago, but Matt Rule said wasn't sure on Monday if Gilmore will be healthy enough to make his season debut. That would be interesting for the Panthers. To your point, they feel like they can contend. They're probably in the middle of a rebuild, right? So we'll see if we see Stephon Gilmore. Gilmore's the type of guy I would put on Kyle Pitts if you were playing matchups. Not sure the Panthers would, but
positionless player on offense versus positionless player on defense, like a proper.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing. Actually, if you just had two players that almost operated independently of the offense and defense,
just go.
Like neither of
like
you
the box
are relevant.
one in basketball. You play a box zone, and then it's just one-on-one with the other guy.
Neither of you guys are relevant to the overall scheme of this system. Just cover each other.
It would be fun. I mean, that's the way Jeremy Chin, that's the skill set Jeremy Chin has, and you see more of those guys entering the NFL. I always joke about it, a nice tight end eraser. Give me one guy who could just cover a tight end. The same way you said, what's a good game for a cornerback? Like, well, what's a good game if you're facing a Travis Kelce or a Kyle Pitts or a Darren Waller? You hold him to 3, you hold him to 2, hold him to 6 and a touchdown, and that's actually good. Like, it's tough, man, stopping those guys. But I'm going to continue to say I don't know if I'm overrating the Falcons beating not great teams or if I'm just liking the way they're trending. Ryan playing a little bit better. His pocket presence has been better. He's number 2 in that stat. Sack rate under pressure and the Kyle Pitts emergence. The defense is slightly better than it was when it was really bad. I don't have a ton of faith in them still, but I just like the way the Falcons are trending as an organization.
Well, the big question the big question is this a get right spot for Sam Darnold, who has been disastrous and was benched?
It should be.
You are facing the Atlanta Falcons, who are giving up a passer rating of 116.5 to opposing quarterbacks. The only team worse than that is the Detroit Lions. So they can't stop anybody in terms of coverage. They have not been particularly good in terms of getting pressure, and that's putting it kindly. They have a dead last rank in terms of pressure rate this year. They are the only team in the NFL that are pressuring opposing quarterbacks less than 25% of the time. So you're not going to get pressure, which helps because your offensive line stinks. You are facing a team that gives up a ton in coverage and have one of their better corners questionable. If Sam Darnold can't look good again this week, forget it. Just bail on it.
So what are you thinking here? 3 points, Falcons at home.
Yeah, that is.
I don't know if Darnold gets right. I mean, I think he'll get better. Right. I'm liking the Falcons in this. I'm probably going to ride this Falcons train until they hurt me again. Again, right? I mean, for years they were our kids.
Well, that's what they do. They hurt.
They were our pick for a while.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that the Falcons. I think that their offense will have success against Carolina's defense. I do think that Carolina's offense will bounce back a bit as well. I don't have faith in Atlanta's defense at all. I hate this game.
Talk it out. Talk through it.
I don't
talk through your answer here.
I do think that Darnold has something of a get right game.
Carolina. Take Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no.
Take Carolina. Right. I'll take Atlanta.
Okay. Atlanta.
Separation Sunday.
Atlanta to win, Carolina to cover.
Perfect. This is science here.
And hammer the over.
hammer the over. Nobody's stopping anybody. All right, Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. Another division matchup that we saw earlier in the season. Buffalo won 35-0. That one was in week 2. Buffalo's favored by 13.5 here. Tua has played better football these last couple weeks. Again, against the Falcons, Jaguars, not great defenses. They're running a lot of favorable scheme that's helping him out a little bit. He's also doing a really nice job of protecting the offensive line, or at least not taking sacks, negative plays behind a rough pass blocking unit. But once again, Tua only had a handful of snaps against the Bills the first week. This is his most challenging defense that he's gone up against. Bills are number 1 in the league, EPA per play against the pass.
The Bills are number 1 in the NFL in defense in a number of different categories.
In a lot of things.
And it's tough to know how much of it is for real and how much of it is a product of bad offenses that they faced. Now, it looked very much the same against Kansas City, but then the Chiefs have been shooting themselves in the foot all season long as well. They couldn't stop Tennessee very well, so it's just very difficult to make out exactly what Buffalo is on defense yet. We know that typically their defense does outperform the kind of sum of their parts, which speaks to good coaching, to good scheme, all those kinds of things. So I think they probably will cause Miami a lot of problems. Miami being very weak up front helps the fact that Buffalo's defensive line is not great yet, and as much as they've got some talented players, they haven't really all come together as a dominant force up front yet. The Tua thing is interesting because he hasn't played that well. He makes it look very difficult and labored and just hard. On the other hand, that chart we talked about on yesterday's show with Justin Fields in a world off by himself in terms of sack rate behind a below average but not terrible offensive line. Tua is one of the lowest sack rates in the NFL behind arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL. A lot of that is scheme. There's a ton of RPOs in there, and it's not like he's calling those. They're helping him protect the offense. But he's also doing a good job himself of protecting that offensive line. So how much credit do you give a quarterback? Like, you do a great job of, one of the things we talk about all the time, like the line that differentiates just a guy from an elite quarterback is how much do you elevate the play of everybody around you.
Yeah.
Now, Tua is doing that, but in a way that, doesn't really matter. You're elevating the play of a cataclysmically terrible offensive line to the point where your offense is just bad.
By throwing a lot of short passes.
Yeah, and doing a bunch of things that aren't really moving the needle that much. That's nice, but you're still coming out of this being like, what are we getting out of this? So it is a big game for him, as every game at this point is, as long as the Dolphins are continually linked with trading the farm for Deshaun Watson and the idea that Tua is on the hot seat. Every game he plays is now a show us something game because you're kind of on limited time at this point. But I think he needs, if he's going to be that style of quarterback where he isn't bringing a ton of aggressive deep balls and explosive plays to the table, you need to be really efficient. You need to not, you can look at his plays last time and say they were kind of freaky. They looked horrendous, but when you sort of look at the film and you're like, his running back, just before he threw the ball was sitting there as if he was settled in space, and then quickly shifted to his left, right, as Tua decided to hurl the ball in his general direction.
Tackled, yeah.
So it looked horrendous, but is probably a lot less bad than it looked.
Yeah.
But you can't keep having those. Whether it was your fault or not, if you're going to be that style of quarterback, you can't expose yourself to that kind of risk. You need to make sure you're efficient and not turning it over. So I think Tua just needs to have a couple of games where he's almost mistake-free.
I just don't know. All that part's great, and if Tua has a nice game against a much better Buffalo defense than he's faced, as far as other defenses go, that's great. I don't know if Miami can stop the Bills, unless Allen, unless they beat themselves, right? Unless Allen just makes a lot of bad decisions. Miami's going to play a ton of man cover, a lot of cover 1, cover 3, going back and forth with those single high looks, and that gives the Bills one-on-ones. This was the game where the Dolphins did a decent job defensively in the Week 2 game. There was some freak stuff that led to the 35 points. It wasn't all the defense, but 13.5 feels high, though, I would say. Doesn't it feel high? Miami's been at least competitive.
Yeah, Miami's defense has been one of the most disappointing units in the NFL this season. Their offense has been as well. Generally
we had
speaking.
higher expectations for the Dolphins' defense.
Yes, that's the thing. They threw all this money at coverage. They've invested on the defensive front. It's just not working. The whole defense is not playing well, and that they don't have enough clearly on the offensive side to overcome any of that.
I'm going to say it's a big number for a division game.
It is.
Miami playing a little bit better these last couple weeks offensively. They'll keep it closer than 2 touchdowns.
I don't know that they will. I think that it is a huge number, but it is indicative of the fact that Buffalo is one of the better teams in the NFL right now, and Miami stinks.
Buffalo going to be big mad after the Monday Night Football loss.
That's
their last game, coming off a bye here.
I'm going Buffalo. Even though
I'll take Miami to cover.
Even though
Buffalo
it's 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. San Francisco 49ers at the Chicago Bears. We got Joe Montana taking on the incredible Chicago Bears defense and Jim McMahon. Wouldn't that be awesome if that was the game?
If we could just swap it out?
Yeah. Be Montana and Bill Walsh against Buddy Ryan and the Bears defense.
Yeah.
Would be great. Instead, You got Jimmy Garoppolo, probably, I suppose, as
maybe
as Kyle Shanahan said, I suppose. Trey Lance with his knee injury, moving around really well at practice yesterday from that video footage that was going around.
Did that not look kind of weird? Not like, I mean, he looked healthy.
The drill that he was doing?
Yeah. Like, what was that? That did not look like textbook footwork.
Stole from Jameis.
Yeah.
Let's get that Jameis training going.
I haven't said this on air, right? Have I? Every drill you see from Jameis Winston is like insane.
You may have, yeah.
Well, let's do it again. See, let's find out.
You're not a man to repeat yourself.
No, never. Like every drill Jameis Winston does is madness, right? Whether it's avoiding swinging tires, whether it's doing bench press on like an inflatable Lilo or whatever the hell he was doing it on. Like everything you see from him is some form of like crackpot unconventional, you know, where you're looking at this and like, what? I mean, I kind of get what it is, but why? Why? Why is the question I have when you see any Jameis Winston workout video. Given the way Jameis Winston plays the game, which is, you know, frequent passes from falling over, that kind of thing. Do you ever wonder that if he just like lay down and bench press like a normal human, he would be more inclined to play the game like the way everybody else plays it?
Play like you work out.
Right.
Yeah.
To what extent is all of the crazy stuff that Jameis Winston does in terms of workouts feeding into the fact that he plays the game like a madman?
It's probably something. I mean, it probably means something.
I'm starting to think so.
So you're saying Trey Lance works out like a madman?
I'm just saying maybe you have, you know, normal footwork drills.
Man, both teams kind of reeling here. Niners and Bears. Bears offense has been just a train wreck. The Fields debate, we had a good one again yesterday. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in this whole situation. It's about QB development. It's about where Fields is. It's about masking his weaknesses, accentuating his strengths. I think there's discussion to be had on all those sides.
This should be a better game for their offense, though.
I think so.
Like, San Francisco's defense is not as good as a couple of the other teams they've played.
They're getting hurt again. They're getting banged up again.
They do have Nick Bosa, who is a potential game-changing player. Like, as much as Jason Peters has played reasonably well this season, I mean, we saw what happened when Myles Garrett went up against him.
Yeah.
Now, Nick Bosa isn't quite Myles Garrett, but it's not that far. He isn't that far away. You know, Nick Bosa has the kind of ability that can do to Jason Peters what Myles Garrett was doing to Jason Peters. Now, in an idea, like hopefully for the Bears' sake, the other three guys in the defensive line aren't doing the same thing that the Browns were doing that week. But like that is a potential problem for this Bears offense. But the 49ers don't have the corners. They don't have the pass rush beyond Nick Bosa. It should be an area where the Chicago offense will look better.
Yeah, I think they definitely should. Bears are just so beat up. I mean, Khalil Mack expected to be out. He's doubtful for the game, not expected to play. Allen Robinson, questionable. Tayshaun Gibson, questionable. Akeem Hicks, questionable. The Bears, again, roster under Matt Nagy, this is probably his worst. And
you're such a Nagy apologist.
I'm just saying it is.
Is he going to be coaching from like his car, or is he getting...
Oh, yeah, he's on the COVID list. Hidden. That's right. We talked about that yesterday.
In an undisclosed location?
Undisclosed. He should be undisclosed on Sunday. Right? Is that what
Matt
you want?
Nagy is calling plays from somewhere. We don't know where. He's in the building.
So I think, let me top off the Fields discussion here really quick. At some point, you want to have a turn the corner feeling from Justin Fields. We saw it from Trevor Lawrence probably in week 4. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect from here on out, but comfort level, disastrous plays, comfort level up, disastrous plays down, right? I mean, you talk about sliders all the time.
Honestly,
that's what we're looking for.
I just want to see a game where you don't watch it thinking this can only be hurting him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even care if he plays well. I just want to come out of a game and be like, that didn't set him back. Because the Browns game set him back. Last week, I think, probably set him back. He is coming out of games now, and you're thinking, there's no way he's in a better place now than he was before he just played this game. Like, this is only damaging whatever work he needs to do to get from here to, like, top-end quarterback. It got further away from the last 60 plays of action. I just want to come out of a game where that didn't happen, where at the very minimum, we stayed where we were. We didn't take a step backwards with Justin Fields.
As far as the 49ers go, coming off a tough loss on Sunday Night Football, I mean, their whole their whole season, trying to be – they're supposed to be competitive in the NFC West, coming off a year with all the injuries that they had and getting more of them. I mean, they're very banged up, on both sides of the ball. What are you expecting from the Niners here? I think, is Garoppolo just on his last leg? Because they're 2-4. He hasn't played well at all.
Yeah.
Not sure they're getting it back to that 2019 level where he played good, solid football. I think we're just, time for Trey Lance, right? When he's healthy.
Yeah. It probably should be. I think they're still of the opinion that Jimmy Garoppolo gives them a sort of higher baseline, although there isn't much evidence to suggest that that's actually true right now. But I think that's still kind of what they're thinking. But his play has been fairly disastrous this year. We have not only that, but it's been getting worse. He started the season with a 71 grade against the Detroit Lions, who suck. Since that point, 62, 54, 56, 47 in the rainstorm. It's been bad. He has 10 turnover-worthy plays and had his first big-time throw in the rain. He's not offering much.
That, to me, the big-time throw thing, that is the story of the Shanahan-McVay system, is having, Jared Goff's big-time throws disappeared. They're like, all right, we just can't. You want to run the offense, and it's about all the plays, but there's just a lack of those really good throws. Garoppolo's been lacking in that area since he got there in 2017. And I think, Trey Lance will bring both to the table, turnover-worthy and big-time throws, but that's a big part of the Trey Lance move.
Yeah.
So I think we're about a week away from it's Trey Lance's team, especially if the Niners lose this game and fall to 2-5. You might as well see what the rookie has.
I think at this point they need to be looking at the output and the numbers and the performance of Jimmy G and asking themselves how much worse could it be if we have to roll with Trey Lance. I think that's a different conversation than it was in Chicago with Andy Dalton and Justin Fields, where the answer is, actually quite a bit. I don't think you have that fear anymore in San Francisco. The conversation is the opposite one to the one I thought they would be having preseason, which is at some point in the season, you're this is going okay. We're ticking along. Jimmy G's doing fine. The offense is good because that's what we do here. But are we getting enough? Could we be getting more if we put in Trey Lance, to beat the best teams in the NFL? What they're actually looking at is, this kind of sucks. The quarterback is bad right now. Everything's going okay, but the quarterback is not helping. How much worse could it be if we threw in Trey Lance, who doesn't look as ready as we thought he would? On the other hand, does it matter anymore?
Garoppolo was good in 2019 because he just didn't miss a ton of throws. He took what was there. He, moved the chains. It's all off.
This is the worst he's ever played, and
all that said,
nothing is helping.
All that said, the Niners are favored by 3.5 here. It's a couple reeling teams. I think, to me, I think you kind of have to lean on these priors that the Niners have a better all-around roster. They're supposed to be a playoff contender. Garoppolo's better than he showed, so at some point he should play better than he's shown. And we just don't. I don't know when Justin Fields takes that next step. If it's this week, if it's end of the season, if it's next year. At some point, I think Justin Fields takes a next step. I don't know if it's this week. San Francisco, 3.5. Oh, I'll take the Niners. Typing it in.
I will take Chicago. I think they might win the game outright.
Okay.
Even with everybody out.
Do they have? Did we get an official status on Trey Lance here?
If
he's officially questionable, limited capacity.
There's no way he's not playing, given that.
But even when he was healthy, they would just put him in for 1 or 2 plays.
Well, that's different, but he'll be active.
You think he'll be active?
Yeah.
I'd love to see. I
don't think he's starting, but I think he'll be active.
I think I'm ready to see more Trey Lance, and then I wonder if Jimmy Garoppolo is just ready for a new world, football team or Broncos or wherever that might be in the future.
Who wants Jimmy G at this point?
What?
Who wants Jimmy G at this point?
Probably not too many people.
He's a backup.
Maybe
right?
the football team. Is he backup for life now, Garoppolo?
Yeah. Until he's in that category now of you're a career backup until you get another opportunity where you may or may not determine yourself a second starting gig somewhere.
Interesting. Yeah, well, especially at the price.
Go back to the Patriots. Be Mac Jones' backup.
Oh boy, get that started, huh? All right, we got a few more games to discuss here. Cincinnati Bengals at the New York Jets. Mike White getting the start here for the Jets. Bengals favored by 10.5. Somebody posted the other day this line, for whatever it's worth. The line for this game in like April was like 1, right? So it's just Bengals are a lot better than we anticipated. Jets are worse than we anticipated, and they're missing their starting quarterback, Zach Wilson.
I mean, when you're in the position of needing to trade for Joe Flacco in the year 2021, you know things have gone south.
Yeah, our guy, Brad Spielberger, actually talked a lot this whole offseason about the lack of just like a good veteran quarterback, in part just to help Zach Wilson along. And Mike White is a veteran quarterback. He's just never been a starter. I mean, he's not necessarily the guy that you want helping. Maybe he's a great locker room guy, and he's a great mentor for Zach Wilson. I'm not sure. But the fact that they don't want Mike White starting and they went and got Joe Flacco, I don't think Flacco's ready for this week. It's a little telling. So
yeah, it's another one of those moves though where you're just like, what's the point?
What is the point?
Okay,
might as well just see Mike White play football.
Well, even if you don't think so, it feels like a reaction to like Mike White playing a game and being like, oh, that's way worse than we thought it was going to be. Quick, what can we do? And like, nobody's on the waiver wire that's any good. Let's trade for Joe Flacco. Yeah, there you go. Philadelphia has 2 backup quarterbacks. Let's grab one of them. Done. But like, okay, if Joe Flacco gives you a better chance to win games than Mike White, I will concede that's probably true. To what end? Like, what is the benefit of winning those games for you?
Yeah, why do you want to win those games right now?
Right. At least, I mean, okay, you want to win them with Zach Wilson as your starting quarterback because him, learning how to win and being better, that's a good thing for your long-term future. If you're being led by Joe Flacco or Mike White, how does winning benefit you right now? And certainly, like, the marginal difference between which guy gives you a slightly better chance to win a game you have no hope of winning, why is that worth giving a pick to somebody for? I wouldn't
give it the pick.
Look, our intro has me ripping Joe Flacco, and like, what is the point of Joe Flacco at this point?
Stay on brand.
Just what is the point in Joe Flacco? Why?
We did get we had a decent email that came in the other day that posed the question too when you asked about Tyrod coming back versus Davis Mills, and we've discussed this before too. It's better for your receiver development, or if you have a better quarterback. Now, you can argue Joe Flacco versus Mike White and who's better in the whole thing. But if you do want to evaluate the rest of your roster, whether it's even the offensive line or if it's your receivers and all that stuff, having a better guy under center does help with that a little bit. That's maybe one of the reasons why that stuff happens. But you never want to put yourself in a position where you lose your starting quarterback and you have to give up a draft pick. You are a rebuilding team.
Right.
You don't want to give up a draft pick just to get a Joe Flacco in the building.
Yeah, and it's a low draft pick, so it's minimal damage, I guess.
Now,
it's just what is the point?
This would all get solved if I can't remember. This might have been our friend Rick's idea. The backup QB house. There should be a house where all the backup quarterbacks live. Brady Quinn's hanging out there, Matt Castle, and then you just call them up for free.
I need a guy.
Yes.
I got 3 weeks. It's like,
yes.
I got a 3-week temp job going. Who wants it?
Yes. They're all, and this is a reality show. Like, you're watching these dudes like play Madden against each other, and they'll tell stories about when they started that one game or whatever.
Like the
backup QB
like
house.
the Heisman Trophy house.
It's like the Heisman house
commercial.
Same idea.
Backup QB house.
Same idea.
All right. I'm interested.
Zach Robinson might,
So you just dial up the house, and you're like, okay, my QB's down. I got a 3-week temp gig,
and you don't know what you're getting.
It's in New Jersey.
Yeah, it's like
who can get here by Tuesday.
I think to make it more exciting, you get like a big wheel with everybody's name in it. Or
it's
ping pong
like
balls, or whatever. And you just pull out a name.
Yeah.
And that guy goes. He goes to the job.
All right.
Josh McCown's hanging out there, right? Sage Rosenfels is there.
You wouldn't rather have like current backup QBs?
No, I'm just thinking all the old ones.
Like all-time backup QBs?
All-time backup QBs are there.
Yeah. Somebody hits the jackpot and gets Steve Young.
Yeah, like everybody that's on that backup QB highlight YouTube channel, they're all living there. They get lifetime.
JT O'Sullivan, Sean
They get
Hill.
a bed for life at the QB house.
That's a big house now.
Right? So can we get a sponsor for this? Let's pull this thing together. Come on, NFL, make it happen.
Who's the Heisman commercial ad for? Who's that?
Nissan? Is it Nissan?
Could be.
Nissan Heisman House?
Can we get them in on
Those
it?
are pretty funny. The Nissan backup QB house. Let's get them
I'll
going
take a
there.
free GTR.
See, Jason Tudor, he'd watch that show. Let's
There
get
you
this
go.
thing going. Come on, ABC.
I'm only interested in the
pull up this
GTR Nissan. I'm not in anything else. No.
Do the Bengals cover the 10.5?
I'll part exchange you a Camaro for it. Do they cover? Yeah.
The Bengals are favored by double digits. What happened? What the heck?
Well, they were good.
I
They
know
got
are.
good.
We talked a lot, by the way. Jamar Chase. If you want more Bengals talk, we spent a lot. Was it this morning? Jamar Chase on the PFF NFL Daily. How good he is, ranking him among NFL receivers. So that's our Bengals talk for the day. Jets are in that mode where it's like, hey, time to evaluate your roster for next year and who's going to be a part of the rebuild and all that stuff. You'll hear me say that for the next 10 weeks. I think the Bengals cover even on the road here.
Yeah, same.
They just gave up 50 to the Patriots.
You completely forgot about Bruce.
Bruce, yeah.
Bruce
is living
PFF's
there.
own Bruce Gradkowski would be in the house.
I've told him this before, too. I was like, I want to have a backup QB house, and you're there, right? You're going to be hanging out.
Dude, Bruce would love
He's going to
that
be
house.
walking around in his bathing suit, shirt off the whole time. I just got back from the beach, bro. Did you pick my name?
Bruce spends his entire time just alternating between the pool and the basketball court out
Yes,
back.
and working out, and he'll
Yeah.
work out, right?
And then somebody's like, leaning over the balcony screaming, Bruce, the Jets have a gig. Nah.
No, I'm good. Don't want to leave the house. Bruce would be a lifer in
Yeah.
that house. Give him everything he needs. This could go on. Let us know which of your favorite backup quarterbacks should be invited
Look,
to the
if you're the
backup QB
CEO
house.
of Nissan, hit us up.
Yes, that too. We have some high-end, CEO types that listen, right? Want to throw some money at this thing?
There's certain words, by the way, that I've decided.
Nissan?
There's certain words that I've decided are worth Americanizing for the benefit of the people around me.
Nissan.
Nissan isn't one of them. I'm not doing that. I can't.
that's what
no.
they call
You're
it.
saying it wrong. I can't. No. I'm
That's
not.
what the company calls it.
Look, only to you people. Like it's like, look, the American people, we need to kind of, it's like Nissan. I'm not saying like Hyundai or whatever you call it.
Hyundai.
No, I'm not doing that either.
What's that?
Hyundai.
What?
Yes. These are the way. So,
Say aluminum.
well, no, because that's spelled differently. Like, not only have you like butchered the pronunciation, you've actually changed the way the word is spelled.
Say garage.
Garage. So aluminum is actually spelled aluminium.
Oh.
Like it's a different word. You have actually changed the composition of the letters to make it a different sound. Most of them you just like decide to pronounce it differently. But anyway, I'm not
The
saying
Nissan backup QB house. Philadelphia Eagles at the Detroit Lions. What is happening this week? Eagles at Lions. Eagles favored by 3.5.
All of a sudden, the prospect at benching Jalen Hurts appears to have come up out of nowhere. And in the world of like, what is the point? What? Why? What? How do you benefit?
He's been not great first three quarters. He's done a lot of this like, hey, fourth quarter and, blowout situations, having his best play. The offense has been off.
Explain to me the benefit of benching Jalen Hurts.
They do have Gardner Minshew, and I don't think
Don't do it.
If you do 10 games of Hurts and 7 games of Gardner Minshew, what?
You are telling me that there is a benefit to sitting down Jalen Hurts to see what you have in Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, because they might be similar. Is there anything that says they're not similar historically?
How can that be we know what Gardner Minshew is at this point.
Do we?
Yes.
We've seen him in a poor situation in Jacksonville.
Yes.
Elevate his squad. Disappointed a little bit last year. But more data points. Give me more Gardner data points, man.
No, stop.
What?
Jalen Hurts is the guy with like some upside and a potential ceiling, and maybe he can be better long term, and he's already taken a giant step forward. Minshew is the dude who like flashed some like surprising talent for a 6th rounder, and all of a sudden it's like, let's see if he can be any better, to which the answer was a resounding hell no. Their careers are moving in opposite directions at this point. And just because Jalen Hurts hasn't been perfect, you're like, well, let's sit him down and see what we have in Minshew.
Where did these rumors come from, by the way?
People are talking.
People are talking.
Uh-huh.
I don't mind seeing a little bit of Minshew, just not at this point in the season. Again, I came in with fairly low expectations for Jalen Hurts. I think he's exceeded those. So
Yes.
there's something there. There's
Agreed. And like at this point, neither you don't appear to have a quarterback on the roster who is the future. So if you lose all these games, it's only helping the draft pick that you have, which you might need to get a new quarterback. And if you don't, like, the only guy on this roster that has a realistic potential future as a starter is Jalen Hurts. So why would you sit him down?
Yeah. Anyway, Hurts has exceeded my expectations. He's been solid, ish. I do think a lot of the stuff's come late. They got to figure out their identity offensively.
His grade in the first 3 quarters, by the way, is like 10 points higher than in the fourth quarter.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Not his passing grade.
Hold, please.
Passing grade, I don't believe.
59.9 in the fourth and 66.8 in the first 3.
That's what I'm saying.
It's worse in the fourth.
What in the fourth?
59 point something.
You're not looking at that right. He's like 77.
I'm looking at it right.
Fourth quarter, 2021?
Total career.
I'm talking about this season. I'm talking about what's happened this season with Jalen Hurts, man. Come on.
Dismiss what we saw from him last year. That no longer counts.
Anyway, what are you looking for in this game with the feisty Lions? Can they get their first win? They're still 3.5 point underdogs.
It's still the same. It's like 68.2 versus 70.6. It doesn't sound like it gets dramatically better in the fourth.
Those are not the numbers I'm seeing. Let's go.
What?
Lions and their depleted secondary. We just get new names every single week in Detroit.
Well, this is like a get-right spot for Jalen Hurts. The only team, the only team worse than Atlanta in terms of passer rating is the Detroit Lions, who are giving up a passer rating of like 123.
It's a get-right spot for Jared Goff, too. It's a lot of get-right.
The only, like that's basically the highest passer rating in the NFL this season. So essentially, any quarterback playing the Lions becomes the best quarterback in the league. So Jalen Hurts is about to have a huge day. Like, remember week 1, where it's like, was this the Eagles or was this Atlanta's defense being that bad?
It was Atlanta.
It was Atlanta, and Detroit's defense is that bad.
Yeah.
So Jalen Hurts is going to look like week 1 Jalen Hurts, and we're going to come out of this week having been talking about benching him going into it, being like, is Jalen Hurts the future?
Maybe he's actually good. So I'm going to take the Eagles to win and cover the 3.5 because Detroit's coming off their Super Bowl week.
Yes, they will win. They will cover, and they may even put up like a double-digit win differential.
LA Rams at the Houston Texans. Rams favored by 14 this week after being favored by 15.5, whatever it was last week against the Lions. Seeing a lot of these lopsided scores. Second straight week we've had 3 double-digit spreads as teams start to, teams go this way, teams go that way.
Huh.
You know what I mean?
It was an interesting hand
gesture. It's like in August, everybody's excited, right? Everybody's positive, and it's training camp, and nobody's got a record and all that stuff. And then you start actually playing football, and you're like, wow, some teams are really good and some teams are really bad. And that's what you have here. Texans, can they stop the Rams and their cover 2 scheme and with their cover 2 scheme and the whole deal?
We might have Tyrod Taylor back for this game.
Now that would bring it a little bit closer.
And interestingly, the line doesn't appear to have moved for that. Like, the news right now is that Taylor's expected to start, barring any setbacks to the hamstring, which is like 24 hours ago, the news was could get him back. Now it appears to be should get him back. I mean, there aren't many apparently bigger quarterback moves than Davis Mills to Tyrod Taylor. Like, Tyrod had that offense looking pretty good until he got hurt against legit competition in the Browns. Davis Mills doesn't. So, I mean, the Rams should still be big favorites, but I would say that becomes a lot closer than 14 points if Tyrod is the quarterback.
I was talking to our friend Zach Robinson the other day. He's the assistant QB coach over with the Rams. He said, have you seen our numbers on 3rd and long? And I said, no.
Yeah, they're nuts.
Like Stafford's like 13 for 15 for 360 yards or whatever. So I was like, he's like, just go watch. We're doing some cool stuff. I'm like, Zach, you're running like the same play over and over again. They're hitting the over route to Cooper Kupp, the dig route behind to Robert Woods. It has worked. I mean, Cooper Kupp has just been open all season, leading the league in receiving yards. In this game where Houston continues to play a ton of soft cover too, I mean, it's going to be Stafford behind a good offensive line, probably picking them apart, hitting open receivers in zone. So this week I think the Rams cover because they held off the Lions' Super Bowl attempt last week, and I think just the Rams are just too good.
Oh, and I do think that their offense will definitely cook. Like, Houston's defense is not stopping the Rams' offense. at all. But I do think the Houston's offense might have some success against this Rams defense, even with, the players that they can deploy in terms of some of the best players in the NFL. I mean, look, you're talking about the number, like in terms of PFF, ELO rankings, number 6 versus number 31. Offense, number 10 versus number 30. Defense, number 1 versus number 30. It's ugly in terms of discrepancy. There's definitely a reason the line is this big. I'm surprised it hasn't moved at all, given the threat that Tyrod Taylor could be back at quarterback.
Maybe that's the threat. They think Tyrod's the same as Davis Mills, huh?
I mean, that's what it seems to suggest.
That's a
harsh
little gut punch for you there, huh?
Yeah.
Guy I like, guy I don't like that much. Superman, Spider-Man thing.
Less so for me, more for
you.
Tyrod.
Yeah. Well, I think, Tyrod might keep it a little bit closer if he's playing. I don't know. Even last week, the Texans kept it close for a while and then still lost by 100. So I'll take LA. I exaggerate a little bit. Give me the Rams to win and cover the 14.
If Tyrod starts, I need to keep on the Tyrod hype train. If Tyrod starts, it's less than 2 touchdowns. Just maybe.
Okay, so Tyrod Houston.
I don't like that. I don't like it.
Jacksonville, 2 more to go. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks with Geno Smith, favored by 3 against the Jags up in the Pacific Northwest. My concern with Geno the other night, week 1, I mentioned he holds the ball a ton, going back to the time to throw thing. Week 1 with Geno, the first start with Geno, they got rid of the ball a lot. Monday night, Geno Smith's average time to throw, 3.39. That is way too long for a guy that just doesn't create outside of structure. He doesn't play like Russell Wilson. Doesn't create like Russell Wilson. He's not that athletic as far as being able to, he can't, evade rushers or do any of that stuff that Russ does, throw on the run or any of that stuff. So the Seahawks, to me, have to figure out a way to get him to play better within the structure of the offense, attack with DK Metcalf, just feed him after they did not, after the 84-yard touchdown the other night. And then we'll see what Trevor Lawrence does here. Can he continue his improvement?
I don't like watching Geno Smith play quarterback. It's just not fun.
You like Jacoby Brissett. You don't like Geno Smith, is what we've learned this season.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something fun about watching Jacoby Brissett go down in flames, a glorious death at the hands of the defense he's facing.
There's a lot of exciting things that happen when Jacoby Brissett plays football.
There isn't that much fun involved in Geno doing it.
Except that comeback attempt against the Rams. That was really good.
Yeah. Like
that one drive was nice.
Briefly. And then it's like, yeah, okay. And
remember when Christian Hackenberg's first drive happened in the preseason? Speaking of one drive heroes. Remember his first drive?
No.
He went 4 for 4 for like 60 yards and a touchdown. First ever preseason drive.
God, I hope the tweets are still out there.
Oh, they're out there.
The victory lap ones.
Look for hashtag the list. Remember that,
yes.
Chris?
Was it Chris Brockman? Is that
Chris
his name?
Law.
Chris Law, yeah.
I think.
The other guy.
He was like, he added us
show.
to hashtag the list. We were all the Christian Hackenberg doubters.
Yeah.
And this was probably right around the time he was going to be having his victory lap.
Right.
We're in year 5.
But I'm sure
there are Super Bowls.
There must be tweets out there of people taking the victory lap after that one drive.
After his first drive.
Right.
It was the best drive I've ever seen from Christian Hackenberg. 4 plays.
From Christian Hackenberg.
Yes, it was incredible. And we just your bingo card, we just filled it out again with Christian Hackenberg.
I didn't do it, you did.
But that's kind of what it reminds me of right now. We've seen one good drive from Geno this season. It was in a relief effort against the Rams. The last 2 games have not been great.
Yeah, I mean, look, Seattle's bad. They don't have a team without Russell Wilson. They're pretty depressing to watch. The thing to watch in this game is obviously Trevor Lawrence. And he's started to look like he's moving this thing in the right direction. Is that going to continue, or is that just like a one-game sample size? The last time we thought he turned a corner, he then had a disastrous game the next week. So he's got 2 from 3 now. Can he start to string together a few of these games where it looks like, okay, we're happy with where Trevor Lawrence is going right now?
He's playing with a little bit better timing, fewer disastrous decisions. The sliders are moving. I'm taking the Jags, man. I've done this too many times this year. Going to continue to get burned. Jags as underdogs to cover this thing. Maybe even pull off the upset.
Yeah, I don't really understand why Seattle is favored.
Even
this
teams.
much.
Seattle at home, cross-country trip. The 12s. Will the 12s still be excited for a 2-5 team?
No.
Oh, okay. They're not going to bring it. They're not going to bring the noise.
I have no trust. I have no faith, rather, in anything Jacksonville does. So Seattle to win and cover.
Seattle to win and cover. You sound excited. All right, let's wrap it up. Washington football team at the Denver Broncos. Taylor Heineke versus Teddy Bridgewater head-to-head here. Another one. Football team has been disappointing. Denver started out hot and not so much recently.
This is fascinating if you look at the ELO rankings. It's 23 versus 24 overall. It's 20 versus 21 on offense, and it's 16 versus 17 on defense. They're the same team.
That's what it just feels like, right? Denver's favored by 3 at home, so even squads here.
Yeah, they are basically the exact same team. Like across the board. The only difference is that Denver's defense has at least shown up on occasions, whereas Washington's has been a disaster from start to finish. Bridgewater has been better than Heineke, although in recent weeks Bridgewater hasn't been playing well. So the interesting thing here to me is that the only thing that's functioning on Washington's defense is the defensive line is still getting pressure.
Yeah.
It's not enough, and the back end is so bad that it hasn't mattered, but they are at least still causing some problems. Denver's offensive line has been creaking, and a little bit like Chicago's, when it's been beat bad. So, I do a weekly Denver hit, and like the tenor of the show is like how bad is this Broncos offensive line, and like what happened to it, and like how is Garrett Bowles grading? It's the worst. And like none of them are that bad. Like the offensive line's okay. They didn't play that badly last week. Garrett Bowles is grading as well as he ever did outside of last year.
Right.
Like none of these things are disastrous. None of these things are, Miami, for example. It's okay. It's just that, again, when they're losing, it's resulting in horrendous things and fumbles and all these kinds of things. So it looks way worse than it is. But Washington have the kind of defensive line that will force that issue and, put Bridgewater under some pressure where things have not necessarily gone as well as they have otherwise.
Yeah, and you keep saying, like, the football team's defense has to look better at some point. And I think maybe in a sea of, you're playing Aaron Rodgers, they got Tom Brady in a couple of weeks, they've played all these good quarterbacks. Maybe this is the week, right? You're playing Teddy and the Broncos who are reeling a little bit, and then the football team's defense looks good this week.
There are a bunch of numbers that kind of suggest that this defense is abnormally or catching an abnormal run of like freakish bad. Like that the results are working out as worse than how they're overall playing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it won't continue. Like that, we've talked Buffalo's defense consistently outperforms the sum of the grades of the people within it. This defense is playing worse than that. So it can be a scheme thing. And it can be the fact that this defense is not necessarily causing problems schematically and putting players in the best position to succeed. But there's also sort of numbers that say, like, even with all those things being true, it shouldn't be yielding the results it's yielding right now.
You're talking me into the football team here, man.
Really?
Heineke's going to make some plays. The football team's going to have a good defensive effort against the Broncos.
I mean, that's the other thing with Washington is that we said, look, Taylor Heineke is Ryan Fitzpatrick after a Gillette commercial. On the other hand, we haven't really seen the good Heineke for a while. Like the last good game he played was that Week 2 game against the Giants. Ever since then, it's been like bad Heineke from start to finish. Like the Ryan Fitzpatrick thing is a roller coaster. Where's the up? Like at the moment, it's been like one nice
Thursday night football and last year in the playoffs.
The roller coaster kind of cranked up to the top of the hill for that game, and since then it's been just whoo right down to the bottom. Is it going back up again? Because otherwise it's just bad Taylor Heineke.
They're kicking us out.
It's over. Busting in.
It's time to wrap it up anyway. So you took Seattle last game. I wrote that down. I wrote down football. I'm taking the football team. I'm feeling good about their defense, and the Heineke coaster's going back to the top here as they head into their bye. By the way, Von Miller did not practice yesterday,
and he's their only source of pass rush.
Garrett Bowles has a foot injury. Garrett Bowles.
Not Boole.
Garrett Bowles has a foot injury. Teddy says it's not time to panic, but it almost is. So Teddy feels the sense of urgency here. Teddy Bridgewater.
You swung me. I didn't want to do that, but
You talked it through. You're like, oh, football team. they got
yeah, but
something.
hadn't bought into it by the time I concluded my thoughts. Now then, you were like, oh, well.
Football team getting through.
All right,
Football taking it.
Washington cover but lose.
All right, we'll start keeping track. I'm 10-2. You were something last week.
I'm 0-0.
0-0. I'm 10-2. I got a good start here. All right, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Don't forget, your promo code is NFLPOD, NFLPOD. You get 25% off any of these subscriptions. So all those green line numbers, stats, grades, the whole thing.
To my pinned tweet, PFF_Sam on Twitter, and donate money. It's going to Best Friends Animal. What the hell? I keep forgetting the name of this thing. Animal Fund.
It's written on the bat.
Best Friends Animal Society. There you go. They essentially save discarded pets from being destroyed. Like, people sack off the dog or the cat that they got, decide they can't care for it, throw it back in a shelter. Most shelters don't have any serious process for that, so eventually the pet gets destroyed, puts down, because somebody was too useless to care for it. So these people try and save that from happening, try and create a world where there are no destroy kill shelters. So
a lot of good stuff happening, and at some point you'll get to see me pitch against Sam because of all of your generous donations. So
yes,
we appreciate that. And that's it. We'll be back on Monday reviewing all of the Week 8 action. Thanks, everybody. Oh, hit that thumbs up button on your way out, YouTubers. Appreciate it.
Go viral, apparently.
It does.